Okay, folks, welcome to video number 10. And as I explained to you before, I have to number these and say video 1, video 2, otherwise I get mixed up and the person that, my agent that does the stuff gets really upset with me. So it is video number 10. And in this video, also biology store, in this video we're going to be looking at coloration of the great white shark. And this is something which people don't know. And it's something that just about every so-called white shark expert out there doesn't know. In fact, what I'm going to tell you now, I put out on a video recently, just as a teaser on something, one of my pages, and a white shark expert, and he is an expert in certain aspects of the great white shark. He's been on National Geographic and BBC, not BBC, and Discovery Channel and stuff. And yeah, he's an expert in certain aspects of the great white shark. And he's actually got his PhD, and he came out swinging that what I said was bullshit. And I totally disproved him. So, and this is a guy that specializes with great white sharks, and a few of his crew, people that work with him, also came out and said, "Oh, this is nonsense. What Craig's talking about. What Craig just said is nonsense." And then, yeah, proved them wrong. So even PhDs working with great white sharks don't know everything about great white sharks. In fact, they more often than not, they know very little about great white sharks. But I'm going to talk about coloration now. Now, as I said before in the beginning, great white shark's dorsal area, okay, is generally pretty dark, but it ranges from a bronzy color. They can be gray on top, they can be bluish on top, they can sometimes be black on top, literally black on top. So the color change, they're not all the same color, which is quite interesting. Okay, but what is more interesting is that they can actually change their color, and this is a mystery because they don't have the pigmentation apparatus, for want of a better term, in their skin. It doesn't appear. So how do they change color? We don't know how they change color, and that is why it has not been accepted that they change color, but they do. They change color somehow, which makes sense, because when they're hunting on a dark, let's say they're hunting around a seal colony and the bottom is very dark, they'll go down there and they'll blend in with the environment. When they swim in near a beach area where it's quite shallow and it's sandy bottom, and they're actually hunting, then they can actually change the color to a lighter color, more of a sandy color. So that makes sense. So they have the ability to change color, and this is something that you will not find in any book on great white sharks, except my book called Great White Sharks and Best Behavior. I'm the only person that's ever written about it. But I'm not the one who discovered it. From a scientific point of view, from a research point of view, I discovered it. I was the first one to observe it. But I was not the first person to ever observe great white sharks changing color. We were out, actually, just give you a little story, we were out at Dyer Island once, and my skipper, one of my skippers, we were working with two boats, and one of my skippers was an ex-commercial fisherman, and his name is Lo Hiku. And he spent his life on the water, fishing for different fish and whatever. He made his living from fishing. And we were out there the one day, and I'd kind of noticed it in the past, but I wasn't sure. and a shark came in, probably 3.5 meter shark, great white shark, and it came in hard, and it went for the bait, and it bumped the boat, and it took off, and then a little while later it came back, and I noticed that it had gone from quite dark on its back to a biscuit color, to a much lighter color. And I looked at the shark, and I said to Lo, but that's the same shark. And he said, yeah, it's the same shark, because we didn't always tag them. We also got markings from them, and we did dorsal fin identification, that kind of thing. And it wasn't always possible to tag the sharks, and we weren't always out there to tag. Sometimes we were just out there to do tests or to just observe certain things. So in any case, I said to Lo, but that's the same shark. And he said, yeah, that's the same shark. So I said, but it's lighter in color. And he looked at me sort of in a perplexed manner and said, yeah. And he said, hulle skrik hulle self wit, which means they frighten themselves white. He was speaking Afrikaans, because he was Afrikaans. So, hulle skrik hulle self wit. They frighten themselves white. I said, well, where's that come from? He says, well, all the commercial fishermen know it. Sometimes the shark comes up and tries to grab a fish, and the fisherman pulls the fish out of the water, and the shark bumps the boat. He said other times the shark comes along and is a nuisance to the commercial fishermen, and they take a pole and they whack the shark with it. Sometimes he says the sharks bump into the motors, and he says they often see them change color, and they go lighter. They don't go darker, they always go from dark to lighter. And that's where the saying comes in. Hulle skrik hulle self wit. They scare themselves white, which just means they get lighter. And that's when I noticed it years ago, many, many years ago. That was in the early 90s. I noticed that these great white sharks had the ability to change color. Now, obviously, it's not there just because they bump into a boat or they get a fright. That has some reaction, that creates some sort of reaction in them. Obviously, when they do get a fright, they do bump the boat hard or whatever it may be. But it's not just because they get a fright. That's just the saying, because a shark hurts itself or gets a fright and it goes light in color, some kind of reaction. But they obviously have the ability to change color depending on the environment that they're hunting in, or if they're trying to hide away. Sometimes they don't. You'll often see them just cruising near the surface, and they'll be very dark in color, and they're relaxed and they're cruising around and they're not in a feeding mode. But if a great white shark goes from, as I said, from an island where the bottom is very dark, they have the ability to blend in with the environment. If they go to an area where the water shallower and maybe it's sandy on the bottom, they have the ability to blend in better in that area, obviously for a tactical purpose or for a stealth purpose. So there you get it. Great white sharks change color. And just to go back to what I said in the beginning, I got a lot of criticism for saying this from so-called experts, great white shark experts. And suddenly a whole bunch of people came out the woodwork that work daily with these sharks. Videographers that are working on boats, that they go out, they take tourists out on boats in Gansbaai, and as we do in Mossel Bay, and they actually film the whole experience, and then the people, the clients, can actually buy the video. And a couple of the guys that work on these different boats and have been working on these boats for years, doing the videography, they came out and they said, yes, they've seen it. They've seen these sharks change color. And then, guys like Andre Hartman, who's an expert, a great white shark expert as well, he's seen them change color. Guys like Chris Fellow. So anyway, I don't have to justify it, but great white sharks are able to change color. And that's what this video is about, which was video number 10. So I'll see you on the next one.